Nobody cared.
What is your opinion on all the Drivechains drama?
I think that originally there was an idea of what a sidechain would be, and it was meant to be something that was deterministic, where it was trustless. And it turned out that that's not either just impossible or nobody can figure out how to do it. And so there have been a number of attempts to keep the brand of sidechain while providing what is essentially just more blockchains. And I think that Drivechain is no different. It's just, for lack of a softer term, like, people think I'm oversimplifying and joking when I say that they're just shitcoins, but they are. They're just more blockchains, and I don't think we need to put mechanisms on Bitcoin to facilitate more competition for Bitcoin. I don't see them as a form of scaling.
I mean, I would just add to what John is saying, and to me the biggest concern with Drivechains is definitely in that realm of regulatory, look at what Drivechains are enabling and doing, because once you get into that territory, it's really hard to make distinctions to regulators, like, these Drivechains and additional blockchains that are on Bitcoin, they're separate, do not look at Bitcoin through that lens. And I don't think that problem and issue has been addressed properly in the current discussion that's going on. So yeah, until I see more discussion and in that realm, I still am in a position where I reserve my opinion and do not go strongly for Drivechains or strongly against Drivechains.
What's your thought back to the SegWit moment?
Yeah, I really wanted babies saved. I mean, when that came, I don't know how heartless you are, John, with that. like why babies are dying?
Well, I don't have any children, so I should say everything.
Okay, yeah. but no, it was very interesting time. And the problem when those discussions start is a lot of those discussions and arguments are just false. And that's where I think, John, you played a big role in, setting the narrative and context and discussion properly. And then when you saw in moments okay, you can't have serious discussion, then you're very non-serious with your dancing. So, I don't know.
Good time.
Yeah.
I guess what I was fighting against at the time, I knew a lot less than I know now, and I still have a lot to learn. But back then, what I was mostly just fighting against was a hard fork. And I just didn't, it's just not a real thing. They don't exist. They're just forks, they're just copies. There's no way to actually transfer all the value from one chain to another chain in any deterministic way. At least nobody has designed such a thing. It might be possible. It might be possible through side chains, which is another danger potentially. But anyway, back then, the scaling debate, the issue there was that you really did just have the first Bitcoin companies, and now somewhat monopolies like Coinbase and such, wanting to quote unquote fire back then the current developers. And this would have been very dangerous, right? To just totally upheave, everything that was working great so far and put it in control of shitcoiners, what they turned out to be. Everybody that was for the fork turned out to be major shitcoiners, and a lot of the ones that don't exist, a lot of them failed as well. Sorry, I'm ranting, but in the end, we did increase the block size as part of that. It wasn't a hard fork, but we did create the SegWit block, and we did make a lot of use of that extra block size in the following years. And now we fill the blocks again. Granted, more temporarily because of trends like with ordinals and such, but they will fill. They always will be filled eventually. And so the question becomes, how will we scale in the future, and what's the most prudent way? The current culture of Bitcoin and protocol developers is to add tons of complexity, which is now getting to the point where you have to start comparing it to just raising the block size or increasing magic numbers without a hard fork. because this one can be measured by anyone, and this one can't be measured by anyone. And so the complexity is just something that I'm very averse to. And so my feelings have somewhat evolved since 2017, and that I would probably rather discuss like refactoring the SegWit block or something, or whatever the best method is, than Lightning covenants on Lightning Tarot and having to implement all of this in a self-hosted node. Like, it's just, people have no idea the complexity that's involved and how fragile that system becomes. And so, can I quantify how much extra it will cost me to run my node? Yeah. Can we make a responsible decision about that? Probably.
That's actually great to hear, because you and me, we have been having our on and off conversations for like last 5-6 years, and yeah.
Wow. I only met you like 3 years ago.
No, come on, John. See, this is where John is a little bit, like
old.
reserved and getting old. Yeah, like 2019 in Berlin, when we spoke about this, I remember talking about my desire that like everyone has their like UTXO,
Yeah.
and
I
remember
have that same desire.
See?
I'm just worried that, people have the wrong idea about how to get there.
Yeah.
Core wants to share UTXOs. Soft workers want to share UTXOs.
Back then, I distinctly remember you telling me, like, that's not happening, smaller blocks, not everyone will have, but this is where, as you're saying, like, your thinking has evolved, and
It's the
love
lesser
to hear.
evil at this point.
Yeah, complexity is something I would love to avoid as well, and then looking back on what happened with SegWit, and that's what motivated my own like creation of this Rockstar identity, because I just couldn't continue arguing with people and seeing what was happening with bigger blocks, smaller blocks, status quo debate, and
See, I came out of anonymity
for
in
that.
2016, and
Oh.
then began my block size war in 2017.
I created Rockstar identity as 2017 when I just couldn't deal anymore with talking Reddit, so I joined Nicholas on BTC Pay server, because what BitPay did was terrible. Like, they just decided to switch all their merchants on SegWit 2x, and that's where Nicholas's tweet originated. This is lies, my trust in you is broken, I will make you obsolete, in response to their blog post where they explain switching to SegWit 2x. So it's interesting how in the end, like, this situation we're in, I kind of even see it as the best possible outcome considering everything that was going on. And now we're again at crossroads for what you're saying. If we're gonna do some super complex solutions, or if we will, like, how to properly continue scaling, because we do need to scale. Like, for me, Lightning, it was always obvious that there will be some kind of custody. Like, a Lightning really works well in scenarios where you have an exchange or some entity to which you open channel, and then you really have that one channel through which you interact with the rest of the network. Out of all the Lightning solutions I've tried out and wallets, to me, Phoenix, that's the one that I really like. But I really saw that channel for majority of people in a form of, that's how they deposit to exchange, and when they want to rebalance the channel, they just deposit fiat or withdraw fiat, and that's how they balance channel. If you go beyond that, like, it's really complicated and complex to implement solutions that will work for average person, and
I think that we have to be a little bit fair as well, and talk about the complexity of Lightning isn't even secured yet, and they want to add more complexity to it. And for you gave Phoenix an example. It is currently probably the only fully functional custodial Lightning mobile app that it's definitely the best at that at the moment. But that's a company that had to entirely dedicate to Lightning and runs their entire stack both the server implementation, the wallet implementation, and if that's what it takes to provide Lightning, this is also very centralizing, right? Like it means that everybody will only use 2 or 3 wallets made by the biggest companies that can afford to run a whole stack themselves. And this is probably why you may see me complain sometimes like on Twitter about Lightning, because we try to implement it in BitKit through LDK, and I learn more and more about the depths of the complexity and some of the bad decisions that were actually made in designing Lightning.
Is there a risk in scaling too fast?
When it comes to that, like I actually really love the outcome, from SegWit Wars or however you call it, is because all these protocol ideas, like they're built on top of base layer. So if they fail, like
The Taproot.
Yeah, well, Taproot, yeah. But Bit VM, like it fails, like okay, yeah, who cares? The base protocol will be safe, but it succeeds amazing. Like that's what I really want to see. Like I want to see more scaling solutions other than Lightning. If we are going in the direction of like coin join realm or some kind of collaboration on the UTXO, like I would love to see that, where it's not just party counterparty, but rather you do have X number of participants in UTXO, and then you have coin join whirlpool kind of scaling solution. So yeah, I'm fine with that as long as it's not experimentation on the base layer.
To answer your question more abstractly, you asked if there's a risk of scaling too fast. Well, anytime you do something on chain, it's speculative. Like you can't predict the future, and you can't force people to do what you think they will or should do. And so when you add some sort of scale, basically that scale comes at a cost to the existing user base until it's fulfilled. This is like a dynamic to keep in mind. So that's the trade-off here, is basically we speculate adding complexity, let's say, and until that complexity is fully saturated and everybody's taking advantage of it, the previous user base is paying the price, either in some way. Like it might be that if we make the blocks too big too soon, then we all have to like store a bigger blockchain. If we make some change that, like adding Lightning too soon, it removes some fees from miners. And so there's always going to be some sort of speculative trade-off. And so if you choose the wrong scaling method and nobody uses it, it becomes like a tragedy of the commons and actually a bad thing.
Yeah, and when it comes to that, this is where I especially love people who are like, I just came to Bitcoin, I'm going to fix it.
Well, it's funny because Paul Sports still feels that way.
Hey, Paul, Paul, when I talk with him, I find it amusing how certain he is, that he knows, what will happen. Well, that's really the biggest problem, is like you just don't know. And this is, I don't know, I still come back to the old proposal SEPA did on like scaling percentage-wise in terms of block size. And he wrote that proposal when? It was like 2016, 2015. I still think something in that direction will probably be how we end up scaling in the most rational like way, because everything else, like, those discussions on breaking 21 million cap and having like tail emission, like inflation, just terrible. So yeah.
How do they think Bitcoin will scale?
I just answered that question.
It should scale by demand, not speculation. So in other words, there should be an apparent problem. There should be a problem that we're actually solving in order to justify touching the base layer. It shouldn't be that, oh, it would be really cool if I had these vaults. It would be really cool if I could do these covenants. And think of all the like apps I could build. Like, no, like this is Bitcoin. It's just meant to be tracking scores of different accounts and do that as securely and as efficiently as possible. I want to see proposals for people for how to make Bitcoin simpler, not how to make it more complicated.
Yeah, I already answered that question, but to repeat, I do think that some kind of percentage-wise increase that becomes like part of the agreement and protocol is likely like what's the simplest after all the proposals, because in absence of anything like that, you will just keep seeing debates and arguments on like, oh, my proposal is going to solve everything, and then you have big discussion, which I don't know. In the end, it worked so far. So yeah, let's keep battling, I guess.
What you're saying could be done very scientifically as well. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be speculative. I mean, you're always speculating on the future, and just like eating, you're speculating on the future. But you can basically you can say, okay, everybody, here are the demographics of who can afford to run Bitcoin node and who can't. And how do we make it so how do we increase that? Well, if we increase the block size, you may make it more expensive to run a node, but the amount of people that you might alienate might be much less than the amount of people that can now afford to send a transaction. And so you have to balance all these things. And the same goes for like running the node in the hard drive space and the bandwidth. If we keep improving, our ability to store data cheaply, as we have been, and our ability to transmit data cheaply, then we should be able to scale Bitcoin in tandem. But it needs to be scientifically based. Like you say, we've studied all of these things, we've looked at all the numbers, and we think a modest scaling proposal would be this. That should be a conversation, Bitcoin adults should be capable of having.
What's your favorite scaling solution so far?
Yeah, when it comes to that, I mean, for me, it's what John was saying. The Lightning is in use, and the fact that we do have Lightning has reduced the number of on-chain transactions that are happening. The thing, though, with Lightning is you have to reserve capital, and superpower of Lightning is settlement. So Lightning really helps one category of transactions, and it's obvious, like after usage of Lightning for so long, like it is helping, but we need to cover all these other cases, and yeah, we need to give people UTXO, because if you even look at what Lightning developers themselves are saying, like your funds on Lightning are only as safe as far away they are from fees, on-chain fees, because if the fees are higher than what you even have in a Lightning channel, hey, it's profitable to attack your Lightning funds. So yeah, that's for me. And then again, when it comes to Taproot, I do want to see solutions that make use of multisig now being cheaper. So yeah, those are two I really look at.
I would say it's the wrong perspective to just say which is the best one, because it might turn out that no layer really behaves, acceptably while blocks are full, and blocks might be full most of the time. And that's true of Lightning. It could be true of any of the constructions people talk about. They don't quite behave correctly when blocks are full. And so if we have both people who don't want to scale on chain and people who want complexity, then this is a mismatch, because if they succeed, the things will break because the blocks will fill. And so you have to think not to put everything in one basket, not all your eggs in one basket, and think about specialized solutions. So like, as he was saying, Lightning specializes scaling transactions. It doesn't scale users, it doesn't scale bandwidth or other things. It just scales transactions and allows instant settlement. But yeah, it allows an instant experience so that it can bring Bitcoin to the point of sale, and that's important to me, at least. It's not to everybody. Some people are okay with it just being for savings, but I think we need to think about, okay, we have Lightning for this, and now we'll have X for that and Y for that, and you're going to have to specialize. We might not be able to figure out everything, and we might end up having to just always make sure we don't neglect the viability of on-chain transactions, because that might be our last resort at some point if all of these things fail at scale.
If there is one question you could ask Satoshi, what would it be?
It's honestly not that interesting to me. Like, people have said, oh, wouldn't you want to have dinner with Satoshi? I'm like, why? Like, if he wanted to be here he would be contributing still if he had an opinion. If you know what I mean, like maybe he is as some like public identity that we don't realize is him, but like it's just not. I would be like, I guess the only interesting thing to me would be like, are you going to spend the Bitcoin? That's, you know. Like,
there you go. You get to it. Like my question is very simple. I will be like, okay, what's the private key for the biggest UTXO you have, man? Like that's the question. And I would absolutely. I wouldn't go to like one dinner with Satoshi. I would just organize like every night for a month or two. I would go to dinner with Satoshi. I would like collect like chronology, like history of all the contributions. I would what's the name of that book that you like? There's like sayings of Satoshi, where it's like his posts on Bitcoin Talk, and then the explanation of what he meant. I would bring that book, and we would go like chapter by chapter every dinner. So because to me. The great thing about Satoshi is the fact that he gave this technology and when you look at the amount of Bitcoin he controls, it's enough to corrupt like seemingly any single human, but didn't happen to him because Satoshi is dead. So but like to give all of that, like it's such a great gesture, and this is where I disagree with most Bitcoiners very proudly when they say, if you meet Satoshi on the road, kill him. I will be like, okay, I'm gonna kill you, everyone. Yeah. Well, there is like if you meet Buddha on the road, like kill Buddha. Like no, like I would literally go kill every Bitcoiner that tries that, and feel very strongly about that because again. Really appreciate what Satoshi did, and you even now have, if you look at Bitcoin Satoshi, now you have a situation with Noster Fiat Jeff, so you can see if creator survives, what's the outcome.
I bet you Fiat Jeff will move on to something else within the next 2 years.
Oh, he will, but he will always come back to say, oh, it's not a Noster, it's the Noster. It's not all caps. And so...
random trivia, I don't know if you know this, but the probably the most famous Satoshi quote, if you don't know or don't understand, I don't have time to explain it to you, is Satoshi promoting zero-conf payments.
There you go. And to Dan Larimer, right? In response to him, but it is, zero-conf payments. And then people like took it out of context completely because...
I missed the first zero-conf wars. So I think there will be another one, though.
Well, let's start a war, John.
I tried last year, nobody cared.